Greetings, this is Jazz of JazReviews with the top 10 weirdest video games, where, as you might expect, the Japanese hold a monopoly over. That said, there's a good few other examples of the ridiculously strange and deeply psychopathic in this list. Kicking off at number 10, Mr. Mosquito. So let's imagine what it's like to be a mosquito who leeches from the blood of an unexpected Japanese household. It's grim, really, to be playing as a parasite responsible for millions of deaths in this real world of ours. But on the weird and slightly Japanese side, it's also kinda sexual. But technical too, as Mr. Mosquito should also be attuned to the human's heartbeat and sync the blood sucking as best to avoid a boss battle. At number 9, Katamari Damacy. The king of all the cosmos has charged his nameless pint-sized son to rebuild the moon, stars, and constellations accidentally destroyed by the king during a heavy alcoholic session. So the cosmos must be repaired by collecting a number of increasingly sizable structures, animals, and debris in a massive ball called a Katamari to reform what was lost. It's actually a very enjoyable game with interesting size, weight, and surface area mechanics, but it is still very weird. But also a form of interactive art, according to the New York Museum of Modern Art in 2012. At number 8, the surreal, abnormal LSD Dream Emulator. The game design revolves around some philosophy that video games should not contain any mission objectives, as natural human existence cannot be reduced to simple objectives. This is the result. There will be another game following the same design choice in this list, but I admit I'm not completely won over here. I don't speak or read Japanese, which is why I suppose this game is on the list. Not to mention I've neglected to take any acid. Perhaps with the aid of such substances, it will make perfect sense. For the purposes of this video, however, LSD Dream Emulator is indescribable. At number 7. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. This game holds a certain place of oddity with me. Call it bias or the nostalgic curse of viewing the same material through a former unjaded self. Abe's Odyssey was simply offsetting to me, and for good reason, I think.
Hello, follow me, okay.
Abe is but one of many Mudokon slaves meant to be butchered under the Rupture Farms meat processing plant to manufacture Mudokon Pops, made from the very life matter of Abe's fellow buddies. I mean, the premise was disturbing, but it's the art direction, faceless industrialism and policing that truly paints a depressingly bleak take on post-apocalyptic dystopia. And then there was this kind of thing. At number 6. At number 6, the eccentric, movie-inspired, and thrilling Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. This zany beat-em-up first released in the arcades with dance magic and a collectible Bubbles the Chimpanzee to help transform Magic Mike into a laser-shooting twirling extravaganza. The home console versions maintained the same storyline, which centered around Michael defeating the bad kidnappers and rescuing all the little children. You can make everyone dance and automatically kill them as a result. You can moonwalk to no purpose. You can do this for no other reason than Bubbles drops in on Master Mike's shoulders to serve the one function of helping Mental Mickey to find the level's boss. Lastly, and very occasionally, you'll be able to morph into Cyber Mike Jackson that is able to fly, laser beam, and bomb enemies. So all in all, a pretty bizarre package. And here's Michael grabbing his. At number 5, Habbo Hotel.
I chose to customize my avatar's looks and clothing. Then I filled my hotel room with furniture and arranged them to reflect my style. I wasn't alone for long though. I got a pet, explored the hotel, and made tons of friends.
Yes, this is one you might remember from the good old days. And if you were ever responsible for playing the game in its intended form of spending money on Habbo credits and pixelated furniture, I do believe you were once complete nobodies, or children, or interior decorators in the making. Which is perfectly fine, as the alternatives were occasionally slightly older people seeking to groom adolescents, in addition to fraudsters, scammers, and some rather extreme groups. But before the advent of VR, Habbo Hotel was the epitome of meeting and greeting in digital form, before getting invited back to a stranger's cyberworld of sex and eventual private screening on MSN Messenger. If that wasn't weird enough, there were exclusive Harry Potter Hogwarts schools with extremely strict roleplay commandments, not to mention some inventive, seemingly impressive working casinos, and other shady operations too. But that's a true role-playing game, isn't it? At number 4, Japan World Cup 3. Yes, 3. The series somehow had legs. I don't know who the hell was buying it, but the legs on screen are attached to a range of competitors such as a Yeti, infant straddling a walrus, and of course, Trojan Horse. The Japan World Cup is a questionable take on horse racing, best played absolutely hammered as a part of a drinking game. Technically, this is not a video game in the conventional sense, but rather a DVD packed with unique clips and outlandish results. Popularized by YouTube gamers a few years ago now, this thing of wonder is still available on Amazon. At number 3, The Stanley Parable.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
Such is a game that defies everything we have come to expect from a game. Stanley was nothing but a mindless office drone, trapped in a mundane existence. That is until a narrator popped in his head and you, the player, gets involved. That's as much as I can paint of the backstory and setting, because it's a game best played fresh.
He entered the door on his left.
But we're usually trained to progress through video games in an orderly, systematic fashion.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Stanley's narrator is forcibly persuasive in the attempt to direct the player's actions. But what if you were to say, no?
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Well, you can, but then of course you start doubting your own instincts and second-guess the little philosophies and conclusions made.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
The Stanley Parable is highly unconventional and utterly unique, but also seems to know exactly what it's doing. The weirdness lies in the player's inability to understand what they should be doing. With multiple endings and each player's personal experiences completely subjective, it's incredibly strange and alien to us.
When you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
At number 2, one of the most accurate simulator games on the market, Goat Simulator. The very latest in goat simulation technology provides for truly next-gen ragdoll goat physics, complete with roller coaster, goat tongue grappling and jetpacking gameplay, not to mention some weird crossover material with the game Payday 2 involving goats' anuses and smuggled cocaine. Oh, and of course, what the whole world was screaming out for, a massive multiplayer online mode. You see, Goat Simulator appears to be one of those ideas usually smothered in the developing studio's drawing room. What are people like? Explosions. What would capture the imagination of young gamers? Goats? It's very much the footnotes of some temp named Steve, who is usually dismissed, bullied into submission by his corporate superiors, yet this game made the fold. It went through the filter to sell at least 2.5 million copies. And finally at number 1. The disturbingly innovative Seaman, a questionable name in itself, but here it is, the Face of Terror, a likeness of the producer's head that protrudes from the fishy seaman species.
Hey, it's the weekend. Grab a date and get out of the house.
How about some backstory? Well, legend tells that the creature originates from ancient Egypt, a reincarnation of a pharaoh's son, and was recovered by a special team of French biologists under the patronage of French government in the 1930s.
The only living sample is of utmost importance.
What? Well, it's like this. Through trial and error and help received under the game's narrator, Leonard Nimoy,
you should have no problem keeping Seaman well fed.
The player must nourish and care for its new abomination of a pet to ensure the evolution cycle of its species reaches its full potential. With the aid of the Sega Dreamcast's microphone attachment, the proud new owner of this thing should not only feed and nurture it while checking oxygen and heat levels, but talk to it.
シーマンが我が家に来てからお父さんに秘密ができた。部下なんだよ。まあお前が思ってるほど向こうはお前のこと信頼してないよ。 Seaman, Dreamcast!
Over an interminate amount of time, psychiatry, and a little breeding,
Oh, that feels good.
you'll be overwhelmed to see that the Frogman is born.
Something really bad.
This has been Jazz of JazReviews with the top 10 weirdest video games. If you're still here after all that, please do subscribe and like the video. But if you're feeling really generous, send this unsolicited video to a friend or the weirdest person you know. At best, they like the video. At worst, they write a manifesto and assassinate me. But this has been Jazz of JazReviews. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.
You're bragging me